How's everybody doing? How's your day? How's work? How is family? Ṣeṣe ń lọ? Òní ni Ọjọ́bọ̀. Nítorí náà, a ò ní pẹ́ bí bá ṣe máa ń ṣe lọ́jọ́ Ajé àti ọjọ́rú àti ọjọ́ Ẹtì. Òní yìí a ní pẹ́ púpọ̀. Nítorí náà, ẹ jọ̀ọ́ bá wa pé àwọn ará wa tí ò tí wọlé lọ́wọ́lọ́wọ́ báyìí. In case you don't understand that beautiful rendition. Today is Thursday, so we're not going to stay for so long. We have a few hours, very few indeed. So please, let's share the live. Let's like the live. We have just about two hours thereabout. It's supposed to end by 3, but it's almost 2 already. We'll see what we can do the next couple of hours. Okay, YouTube looks good. I think the issue now is so let's do the regular stuff. If you're on TikTok, please click on the heart icon above my head and kindly join the team. If you're a member of the team, please click and drop a heart me. Thank you very much. All right. Okay, where were we? Here. So please let's share the live. Let's share the live. I need to share the YouTube link, and then we can get into the conversation. If you're on TikTok, please, sorry, if you're on YouTube, please like the live. Thank you very much for joining us. Good afternoon. Sheda Dalewa. All right. Just a second, just trying to share these things and then we can get right into this. Thank you very much. I see we're going up. Please on TikTok, let's like the live. These things, these things help the live get on the FYP. So please power tap on TikTok and also share the live. We're going to get into this in about a minute. We're almost done. Solo 28 dáadáa ní oṣẹ́ wa. Ẹ káàsán o. Tí n bá ṣáà lè play orin fún yín lórí copyright. Èmi mo ní copyright ohùn mi, so wọ́n ní fún wa wàhálà kankan lórí YouTube. Mo lè kọ orin fún yín díẹ̀ àbí kí n hum. All right. We are good. Oh, we are good, but okun kankan. Just one more thing. All right. So today we're going to make it very fast. It's a Thursday, and normally I don't, Thursdays, I think people are also getting used to it. Thursdays I usually don't come on camera. We just play audio. But where we stopped yesterday, I thought it's important for us to. Blackface can fit claim copyright on me. Jesse, only a come monko. Well, I'm trying to get into what we're starting with. All right, YouTube. I think we're good now. Nados Amare says, "Where am I?" I'm in the shadow. I'm under the shadow of the wings of the Almighty. Do you want to visit? Because if you were there, you wouldn't ask me that question. I'm not sure you're there, but just in case you stepped out, would you like to come around? That's where we dwell. He who abides in the secret place shall be he that dwells in the secret place abides under the shadow of the Almighty. I shall say of the Lord, He is my refuge and fortress. All right. Ẹkáàbọ. Àbí ẹkáàsán, ṣé dáadáa ni gbogbo ilé ńkọ́? Òní àní, you know what? I'm getting into Yoruba. Òní àní pẹ́ púpọ̀ lórí ọ̀rọ̀ ìròyìn. So I'm not going to say too long on the news. I'm just going to read a few things and then we'll get into the conversation. See how far we can go with the topic we started yesterday. And we can make it as quick as possible. So please, you are here now, and I'm glad you're here. But please, let's power tap on TikTok and let's like and share the live on YouTube and also on Twitter. So the federal government has named Kwam Aviation Security Ambassador. Excuse me. Federal government has named Kwam Aviation Security Ambassador after airport incident. We talked about it yesterday, that it will be banned for, he's on a no-flight ban for 1 month, and then he'll be able to resume flying. All right. Another news that I deemed quite important. FEC, that's FEC, imposes 7-year ban on establishment of new federal tertiary institutions. That's something from the Federal Executive Council. They had a meeting yesterday, like they always do on Wednesdays, and then they came up with this thing. I saw the video yesterday, but because of time, I'll probably just read it but if I have to play, let me just read it because of time. The Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by President Bola Tinubu on Wednesday has approved a 7-year ban on the establishment of new federal tertiary educational institutions across the country. The moratorium covers universities, polytechnics, and colleges of education. Tunji Alausa, Minister of Education, explained the context and necessity of the moratorium, noting that the current challenge in Nigeria's education sector is no longer about access to federal tertiary education, but about addressing the duplication of institutions, which has led to significant deterioration in both infrastructure and manpower. In our country, access to quality financial education is not, I think it's supposed to write tertiary, so people made a mistake here. In our country, access to quality tertiary education is no longer an issue, the minister said. What we are witnessing today is duplication of new federal tertiary institutions, a significant reduction in the current capacity of each institution, and degradation of both physical infrastructure and manpower. If we do not act decisively, it will lead to marked declines in educational quality and undermine international respect that Nigerian graduates command. I'll also outlined the scale of Nigeria's tertiary education landscape, noting the vast number of institutions. He said there are 72 federal universities, 108 state universities, and 159 private universities, and highlighted similar patterns within polytechnics and colleges of education. The minister also cited allied institutions such as monotechnics, colleges of agriculture, health sciences, nursing, and innovation and enterprise institutions. So all that is to say that for the next 7 years, no new federal university, polytechnic, any of those, no new ones will be established. I think it's quite nice because that will ensure they're able to concentrate on what we have right now and make sure that we have qualitative education, I should say. N.K. Williams, good to see you. All right. We talked about this yesterday. The federal government, Petroleum Investment Holdings Limited, are set to commence the construction of a $60 billion gas and 4,000-kilometer high-speed rail project in Nigeria, to be Lagos to Abuja to Port Harcourt. That's very, very good news. Yesterday, there was a public hearing in Lagos on the Lagos Tenancy and Recovery of Premises Bill 2025, and we're hoping that they pass the law so that, one of the things we were talking about this whole rental yesterday, and the truth of the matter is that while I like the fact that tenants are protected, I think for the most part, it's as if things are lopsided, in that area where, yes, tenants are protected, but the landlords are now essentially looked upon as bad people. So any small thing is what we do with all these underdogs, and before you know it, you have people just misusing power because the law allows them. So I hope they fix that, and we have better better laws for our people. Ibom Air, oh, okay. Yeah, if you want to fly Ibom Air, you can fly. I know some people are trying to destroy the brand, but one mistake shouldn't be the reason to cancel the business. All right, I saw one news report this morning. I really don't know what to think about this. Third Mainland Bridge has been found to have issues with its underwater structures. The costs for rehabilitation are projected at 3.6 trillion naira. That's from the Minister of Works, Dave Umai. You know what? Let us listen to him, because I'm trying to process it myself. So maybe when we hear him say it, it will be easier to digest. So take a listen to Engineer Dave Umai.
We also submitted a memo, and the theme of the memo is approval for constructive engagement on the rehabilitation or construction of new Kata and Tom Mainland bridges in Lagos State. I drew the attention of FEC to the fact that we've been intervening some new construction, some emergencies in a number of bridges nationwide, like Jemeta Bridge in Adamawa, already completed. Murtala Mohammed Bridge in Kogi State is ongoing. We have Jeba Bridge in Niger State. We have Gashua Bridge in Yobe. We have Eko Kata Marine Bridge and Independence Bridge, Tom Mainland Bridge, and the Kata Bridges in Lagos. We have Ibi Bridge in Taraba State, Artisan Bridge in Enugu State, Apoha Bridge in Ebonyi State, Opobo Bridge in Rivers State, Barrow Bridge in Niger State, Buruku Bridge in Benue State, 3 numbers collapsed bridges in East-West Road, 2 in Delta and 1 in Bayelsa State. So these are bridges where, but just to mention but a few. Now, what are the issues of Tom Mainland Bridge and Kata Bridge? In 2019, there was a study to find out what is happening, below the water of Kata Bridge and the, Tom Mainland Bridge. And it was discovered that there were a lot of problems because the pipes were installed in the technical terms of skin friction, because sand, rock would not be discovered. Skin friction is a method whereby you secure the pipes. And under the aggregation of the pipes, you have the pipe cap. So it was discovered that these pipes, being held by sand, is being washed away due to illegal mining of sand and due to also ocean, current. And so in 2019, another study was carried out, and it was discovered that the deterioration of these pipes, some rusting, chlorination, loss of sand, was very, very much in geometric progression. And so when we came on board, the president directed that we should look at the rehabilitation of the Tom Mainland Bridge, so which we have resurfaced, 11.8 kilometers by 14 lanes. And then we went to look at what is happening, under the deck, but, above the water. And so we gave that contract to Julius Berger, Ido Bridge, Kata Bridge, and Tom Mainland Bridge at a contract sum of 65 billion. And their job was to, repay all the rusted piers, or in layman's terms, columns, and then look at the pipe caps and then treat the pipe caps because the rods were exposed and rusting was taking place, very badly. And so in the course of doing this, we also embedded in their contract, let them look at the 2013, underwater investigation and 2019. So it's part of their contract. And so they now came up and said, look, Kata Bridge should be closed immediately against traffic, and that the Kata Bridge was beyond repair. It has to be a new construction. And they gave us a cost about 380-something billion to, rehabilitation, but said it was not feasible. But the one that was feasible was about bridge, and they discussed with Deutsche Bank for their funding. Now, for Tom Mainland Bridge, nobody submitted any proposal, but the same problem of underwater problems, in Kata Bridge, the same thing with Tom Mainland Bridge. And when we did a pro rata of, what is to be done, if we are to rehabilitate, it came to about 3.8 trillion. And if we are to do a new construction, it came to about 3.6 trillion. And so we approached, Federal Executive Council and said, look, give us approval, to do 2 things under EPC plus F. to allow not less than 7, specialist contractors to undertake comprehensive investigation, comprehensive design, and a bidding to reconstruct it, brand new bridges, or to, do rehabilitation of these 2 bridges. Then the third one is to advertise for PPP, where the, private sector will bid, for rehabilitation.
All right. Okay, so that's about that. I'm not an engineer, so I don't know, what that is. But then again, they're spending that much money on the bridge. Moving on to another news. Afrexim Bank supports Nigeria's $40 million Caribbean port project. Nigerian entrepreneur and managing director of Aquarian Consult, Mrs. Aisha Maina, has secured a $40 million investment backed by the African Export-Import Bank to develop a deep water port in St. Kitts as part of efforts to create a direct trade corridor between Africa and the Caribbean. According to a statement, Maina, also founder of Gemini Integrated Commodities, signed the agreement on July 28 in Grenada during the Afrexim Bank Africa-Caribbean Trade and Investment Forum, alongside the government of St. Kitts and Nevis and Afrexim Bank representatives. A couple more things that will move very, very fast. So, 2 news reports, one from Benin and then the other one from Abeokuta. The one from Benin, I think let's just quickly listen to that. That's from the governor and what he says about the president and his promise to him. Take a listen.
Hi, your son has promised. Hi, your son has promised Mr. President 2.5 million votes. 2.5 million votes. I promise that by the grace of God, come 2027, we are going to deliver that vote to Mr. President. Are we people in agreement with me? The president we have today, if Nigeria had 2 of such presidents, Nigeria would have been like America. He has been able to stabilize our economy. Let me stop here.
Yeah, so that's Governor Monday Okpebolo and his promise to the president. Speaking of the President Bola Tinubu has pledged Nigeria will become a steel powerhouse by 2030 with an annual production target of 10 million tons of liquid steel. 2030, that's 5 years from now. We're looking forward to that. Mumbo. The Minister of Solid Minerals Development, Dr. Dele Alake, has announced that the federal government plans to revoke 1,000 dormant mining licenses, in addition to the 900 it revoked in 2024. All right. Now to Abeokuta. This is from the Obasanjo Presidential Library. Take a listen to what they have to say.
Damage cost being made to those persons who were arrested and whose vehicles were carted away by the invasion force of the police and the EFCC, as well as for bodily injuries suffered by these persons, numbering at least 100 persons, be paid in the amount of at least 1 billion naira. We also demand that a further 2.5 billion or 2 billion and 500 million be paid in token acknowledgement and atonement for the immense damage caused to the reputation, business, and financial reputation, as well as to the reputation of our chief promoter, His Excellency Chief Olusegun Obasanjo, GCFR. Finally, we have further instructed our lawyers that should these demands not be met in full within the next 7 days, starting from today, Wednesday, August 13th, 2027, 2025.
All right. So what happened was that some young people were having a party at the Olusegun Obasanjo Presidential Library, but then the EFCC went there to make some arrests and stuff like that. And then, according to them, they also, caused some damages on the premises. So they are demanding 3.5 billion naira and apologies from the EFCC. So that's that from the Presidential Library in Abeokuta. The Ogun State government, we're still in Abeokuta. The Ogun State government has announced a 2-week extension for property owners and occupiers to submit their title documents, including planning permits, as part of the ongoing statewide physical development audit. All right. Like I said, I don't want to spend too much time on the news. I think we've got enough. Right. Okay, we're ready to talk about the steel companies. So we're looking forward to that. But we cannot state this something very interesting. Cannot state the House of Assembly has suspended the chairman of Rano local government, Muhammad Nazir Yao, for 3 months to allow for investigation into allegations of misconduct, abuse of office, and misappropriation of funds leveled against him by his councillors. That's good. All right, I think we're good. The other things, but I'm trying to remember. Let me see if there's anyone I can read because of time. What time is it? 2:17. Okay, we're still good. We are right on shadow. Number. Okay. All right. You know what? Let's get into today's topic so that we don't spend too much time on the news. I'm trying to detach myself, but I'm sure tomorrow we're going to spend a few more minutes than today. All right. All right. So let's move on to the topic very quickly. So yesterday we started talking. I'm not going to bring people up because again it's Tuesday. We'll bring people up much later. Yesterday we started talking about our Zik and Federalism. We had part 2 yesterday. Today we're going to have part 3. Again, we're not going to be here for so long because it's Thursday. So by the next 1.5 hours, we'll have to be rounding up. Okay, having said that, let's get into the topic of today. So we've been talking about our law, and yesterday we spent time discussing federalism and the establishment of Egbe Oduduwa in London, 1945. 1 second. So we're discussing the founding of Egbe Oduduwa in 1945 in London. We also talked about the charter or the aims and objectives of the association when it started in London. Now, in case you weren't here yesterday, please, if you're on TikTok, please don't stop our tapping. If you're on YouTube, please like the live and share as well. All right. I was saying that in case you're not here yesterday, we talked about how the first sociocultural group that was formed in Nigeria was EBBO State Union, and it was established in 1928. And then, of course, others came along, like the Urobo Brotherhood, that was established in 1931. A number of groups were established, but in 1936, the Ibo, started their own unions as well. And then in 1944, Papa went to the UK, and in 45, himself, Dr. Nyakerele, Dr. Abiodun Akerele, Chief Atunero CG, Chief Akintola Williams, and a number of other people formed Egbe Oduduwa. And the idea basically was that it was going to be an organization that would help the Yoruba people, number one, find cohesion, so that regardless of our differences due to the several internecine wars or intertribal wars, we'll be able to come together as a people. And so, and of course, they also had plans, for the education of the young people and things like that. And then they had another plan where they were going to work with other such organizations to build Nigeria and to ensure growth and development all across the country. That was what they planned. But in 1945, after starting the organization in London, they had a pushback, and the pushback was from the Igbo State Union. And again, remember, Igbo State Union was founded in 1936. But then by 1943, they already had a branch in the UK, in London. But then they said to the Yoruba people that what they were doing was tribalistic, that having a Yorubization was going to wreck the unity of Nigeria. And we said yesterday that it's essentially the same thing that we see today. People will gaslight you, into essentially thinking that you are the one who is wrong, and you'll be wondering if you are the tribalist or not. Actually, the person who is saying that is essentially projecting that's who the person is, and they're just putting that on you. So you have to be careful not to internalize that. All right. And then we talked about how in 1948 they started the organization in Nigeria, Egbe. So I'm going to read from the book, our main text for today. 1 second though. Our main text for this series has been Our Autobiography of Chief Obafemi Awolowo. So I'm going to read from that book now. All right. Okay, so I didn't mention that after they started the organization in London, they decided to have a meeting. Adebola, thank you. Decided to have a meeting with the Igbos to explain to them how what they were doing was just similar. I mean, that Egbe Oduduwa was similar to the Igbo Federal Union that they had, at the time. And then they were going to have a meeting to discuss that, but then the meeting never held because the Igbo Federal Union cancelled on them. And he also said that when they founded the organization in London, they sent copies of their constitution to Obas and chiefs, and they got responses from Oba Adesoja Aderemi and 3 other persons in the entire space. So I think that also bears repeating. Now, 1948, they founded that same organization in Nigeria. The people who actually founded it in Lagos first was Deomola Kija, Dr. Akinola Maja, Sir Kofu Abayomi, Chief Bode Thomas, and Chief H.O. Davis, and Dr. Akani Doherty and others. And as soon as, by this time, this is 1948, Papa was already back in Nigeria. So remember, he went to the UK in 1944. 45, they started going to Oduduwa. 48, he was back in Nigeria. Folks started it in Lagos. Then he also inaugurated a branch in Ibadan. And, they worked together. And then it says here, the new organization pledged itself to encourage, especially by means of scholarship awards by the society, the pursuit of secondary and university education among Yoruba boys and girls. So the first aim that they have was to provide scholarships for young Yoruba people to be able to go to secondary schools and universities. Also, the second one was to recognize and maintain the monarchical and other similar institutions of Yoruba land, to plan for their complete enlightenment and democratization, And then number 3 was to strive earnestly to cooperate with other ethnical associations in matters of common interest to all Nigerians, so as thereby to attain to unity in federation. So those were the 3 main objectives they had, right? And even there, you notice something, that while having plans for Yoruba people, they also showed that they had plans for other groups. And one of the things I like about that is that it shows that we have an altruistic. I mean, we have an altruistic legacy to look up to, right? Or example to look up to, or model to look up to. That we are not folks who are just about ourselves. And I said it yesterday, and I should also repeat it, that in Nigeria's history, political history especially, it seems that certain groups, are committed to doing well regardless of what happens to others. Some will do well and want others to do well. Then there's another that would do well at the expense of others. We are the second. All right. Our elders were people who wanted us to do well, but they also wanted good for other people. I want to read something today. I promised I was going to bring out this book today. Yeah. Sorry. All right. So I promised I was going to bring out a book today. Make it 2 actually. 2 books. First one is called Educated Elites by Ondele. I'm going to read to you what it says in this book, The Educated Elite in the Nigerian Society. It's a very, very fantastic book. All of us collect in this book. One of these days we'll read it. He had something to say about every ethnic group, Yoruba inclusive. But in this particular matter, I just read something for, in your hearing. Number. So there's a document I've never really mentioned. So I've told you a book where I read it from, but that document itself is called IUL, Collections on Civil War, Ibo National Caucus Protocol, marked secret and confidential. I'm going to take it again because I say I will spend some time reading this thing today. So what I'm about to read, there are 2 other sources that have quoted this particular source. Oh boy, guys, please, I need to do something right now. I don't know if you can hear that sound. Please, let me quickly sort that. Oh dear, oh dear. I thought that would happen. Mumbo. All right. All right, sorry about that. Had some technical stuff, I'm sure you saw it. Um, but that's okay now. All right, 1 second. Okay. Yeah, so we had to quickly switch our source, but we're good. I'm trying to remember where we stopped. All right, so I was saying that the Egbe was, I don't remember the exact point where I stopped, but we just, that okay, I remember. There is a document, that was released by the Ibo State Union. This is from, so I've read, what I did the other day was to read a particular read a particular book quoting this document. So first of all, let me explain that what I'm about to read is from what I'm about to read is from a document called IUL Collections on Civil War, Ibo National Caucus Protocol. So the document itself is called Ibo National Caucus Protocol, and it is marked secret and confidential. Now, I'm saying that because the first time I read this thing, certain people said it was a lie, it couldn't be, because again, I mean, it's very difficult to sometimes agree with the fact that some people's leaders are just interesting characters. So I'm going to read it, but I hope you're going to get it. Again, IUL. This is from the Ibo National Caucus Protocol, and it is marked secret and confidential. I'm going to read this because I want to compare it with the aims and objectives of the Egbe Oduduwa when it was founded, and then you can now, come to terms with. Hopefully, come to terms with. I don't know if you can come to terms with it, to be honest, but at least you're able to juxtapose their own objectives with the ones, of the Yoruba organization. So this is from the Ibo National Caucus Protocol. Again, it's marked secret and confidential, and it is signed by two people, Dr. Mbadiwe, Ozumba Mbadiwe, yes, Dr. Mbadiwe and Mbanugo, Dr. Mbanugo. They are the ones who signed this document I'm about to read. It gives you an idea into the objectives of the Ibo State Union in the 40s and in the 60s. Take a listen to this. The censor's misfortune and I'll take that again. The censor's misfortune and unavoidable circumstances now endanger our 20-year struggle for the achievement of our objective. Let me first start by saying this. This document was released in 1964. This, by the way, this not document, this this statement was put out in 1964, but it was meant only for members of the National Caucus of the Ibo State Union. Right? So it's a protocol. Thank you. It's meant for the people inside. So it's secret, it's confidential. It has been reported. I have at least 3 sources of saying the same thing. And I have to check. Because the first time I read it out, people were like, no, it's a Yoruba man that said it. Anyway, it's not a Yoruba man. You will find it in the ICL on the Civil War. So this is something that has been out since the 70s at least. And a lot of people already knew it. Okay, it's just that we have not been discussing things like this, but we should. So we understand what certain people had in mind for others. And then we now read what your own elders have in mind or had in mind for themselves and others. And then you can now put those two together and then judge how to understand Nigerian political history. So again, this is from the Ibo National Caucus, and it's a group in the Ibo State Union. And this document or this statement was signed by two people in 1964. The two people were Dr. Mbadiwe and Dr. Mbanugo, right? And this document was published when they were alive. I always say that because, and the truth of the matter is that this Mbadiwe published a book, The Rebirth of a Nation. I have that book. They didn't bother to say this thing was a lie. Just to make it very clear, in case certain young people start shouting, oh, they hate us, it's tribalism, they're lying. The person where they talk about, he see him, he no fit deny him. Nobody go deny him now. So waiting then talk, waiting then write for that thing. Again, private circulation, secret and confidential, but now we can see it. The censor's misfortune and unavoidable circumstances now endanger our 20-year struggle for the achievement of our objective. Enemies of our fatherland have alerted the decadent Yoruba and the reactionary Northerners. The indiscreet utterances of many of our men have contributed largely to the dangers which now beset us when we have almost reached the goal, the promised land, or the promised land. You must no doubt remember that a similar indiscreet utterance by C.D. Oyema gave us no end of opposition by the Yoruba when he publicly stated that the domination of Nigeria by the Igbo is a question of time. Outwardly, all our official and unofficial utterances must adopt an opposite procedure, and we must always do our best to appear honorable and cooperative. Remember, a statesman's words do not have to agree with this. I'll take that again. Remember, a statesman's words do not have to agree with his acts. In the East, the Efik, the Ibibio, and the Rivers tribes are still under complete control, even though their dreams for their own state have been completely shattered. Despite the intrigues of Okotiebo and Omo Osage, we have succeeded in clamping Osadebe firmly on the Midwest saddle, thus taking care of Urobo, Edo, and Ishekiri. Okpara showed his hands too quickly last year, 1963, when he was overconfident that the census figures would be to our advantage and that the struggle was almost won. He would have pampered Fani Kayode till an NCNC victory in the Regional West elections was secure. Then we would have ruthlessly dispensed with him and put a more amenable person like Akinfo Sile in the saddle. Play up Awolowo at all times. This will keep up the resistance of action group members and stop them from uniting. Say that again. Play up Awolowo at all times. I'll take it from beginning. Play up Awolowo at all times. This will keep up the resistance of action group members and stop them from uniting with the NNDP to form a solid Yoruba front. This is vital, and there is no harm in this pro-Awolowo propaganda, for he is no longer a headache or danger to us. We are happy that our protocol on cessation of newspaper attacks on Sardauna and other northern leaders have stopped. Amechi and Okafor are to be complimented so far. Everything must be done to appear to appease the Sardauna and Ribadu, but Balewa we can always deal with. If we can then win the West at the next general election by keeping the Yoruba divided, we shall secure control of the federal cabinet and the country. Not in 1964 as we envisaged, but in 1969. 5 years may be a long time in our personal lives, but to a people such as ours, it is further time for preparation. There's hardly any part of Nigeria these guys did not mention in their plans. Now, we're going to go over this thing. We're going to go over it dear. Number one, he mentioned that they had a 20-year struggle. They're writing this thing in 1964. It's a plan that's been in the works officially for 20 years. That's number one. Number two, it says the enemies of our fatherland have alerted the decadent Yoruba and the reactionary Northerners. So from the very first two sentences, you get, number one, the fact that they have a plan that they put in motion in 1944. Number two, they consider Yoruba people to be decadent and they also to be reactionary. Number three, It says, the indiscreet utterances of many of our men have contributed largely to the dangers which now beset us when we have almost reached the goal, the promised land. What is it talking about? Listen, 64, at 64, everything in 1964, the civil service was firmly under the grasp of the Igbos. Now, remember, this is not by NCNC. This is not a statement by a political party. This is a statement by a socio-cultural organization in 1964. The person who signed this document is the one who wrote the book, Rebirth of the Nation, and called Awolowo a tribalist. And his children are the ones who call you tribalist today. It says, then they said, you must no doubt remember that a similar indiscreet utterance by C.D. Onyema gave us no end of opposition. How many people remember when C.D. Onyema made that statement? We're in class. What year did C.D. Onyema, Charles Onyema, made this? What year did he make the statement? The Igbo domination of Nigeria is only a matter of time. How many? Do you remember? Anybody? Oh, yeah, no. 45, 1944? Is it 45 or 1945? Which one? 48? 1945. It's 1945. It's a year after they set that plan in motion. Easy. Thank you, Ibo National. Thank you, everybody. Even if you wrote 48, thank you for responding. It's 1945. That statement was made in 1945. Now, the crazy thing about that is this. 1945 was about a year after they set that plan in motion. And so knowing what they had planned, and thank you on YouTube as well, thank you for your responses. Knowing that they had everything sorted, the man was bold enough to say it outside that the domination of Nigeria was only a matter of time, but the Igbo domination of Nigeria was only a matter of time. One of the things you notice in this thing is this: that statement, Igbo domination, you find it in Papa's book, which I'm going to read again, O&B Combe. You find it in, so that's Awo, the autobiography. You find it in Anthony Nauro's speech in 1968, right? You find it in, referred to in My Command. You find it in Tragedy of Victory by Alabi Sama. It's all over the place. So nobody, they couldn't, you can't say it didn't happen. So what they had to do was to say, it shouldn't have said it, but we're still planning it. In other words, that plan, it wasn't like he made it up. It was a real plan, but they didn't want, they thought they shouldn't have said it. Just like what they said about Okpara, Michael Okpara's statement. We're going to get to that eventually. Then the next thing he says that outwardly, all our official and unofficial utterances must adopt an opposite procedure, and we must always do our best to appear honorable and cooperative. Remember, a statesman's words do not have to agree with his acts. These are the statesmen. These are the Pan-Africans. These are the nationalists. These are the people that call you tribalists. Again, this is one of the reasons I want that road to change. I don't know how long it's going to take, but one day, that was one about the way they're going to change that name. Not only did he sign this document, he also did some other things that we're not talking about today. Now, he says, you already heard the mention of Yoruba being decadent and Hausa, nothing has been reactionary, but that's not the end. He says, in the East, the Ibibio, the Efik, and the Rivers tribes, so everybody in South. When you hear Efik, Ibibio, and the Rivers tribes, you are literally hearing Cross River State, Akwa Ibom State, Bayelsa State, and River State. So that's the COR provinces. It says in the East, the Efik, the Ibibio, and the Rivers tribes are still under complete control, even though their dreams for their own state have been completely shattered. Guys, I'm going to read this in again when we get to the conversation on state creation and what NCNC and Igbo State Union did to the minorities in the Eastern region. We're going to get to it in this series. That's why I said this book we're going to finish this book together. I might jump some pages and stuff because of time, but we will get all the meat of in the book. The idea that people are going to have states has been around since 1940s, starting with the Southern Cameroonians. The point is that they wanted the entire place to be completely under control. In fact, they said they are still under complete control and their dreams are being completely shattered. Then he says, despite the intrigues of Okotiebo and Omosage, Okotiebo is the Shekiri man who had a problem with the old Midwest creation. Again, when we get to the state stuff, we'll talk about it as well. Then, so it says, we have succeeded in clamping Osadebe firmly on the Midwest saddle, thus taking care of the Urobo, Edo, and the Shekiri. So you've heard what they said about the Yoruba, what they said about the North. Now they're talking about the groups in the South, in their own eastern region. They're not talking about the group in the Midwest. The Urobo, the Edo, and the Shekiri were put down. They were clamped. And they installed Dennis Osadebe, who was an Igbo man in the Midwest, as premier. They ensured that he was one of theirs that became the premier of that region, even though they were a minority at the time. I want to quickly say something. I'm not reading this thing out to say Igbo people are bad. I'm telling you that when you see people act certain ways and you're a Yoruba person, all you are saying is that, oh, it's not good, it's not good. You don't understand what has happened in the past. And you don't even see that what's happening right now is directly connected to what happened in the past. There's a repetition of terrible acts from the past. We're able to shut down the indigenous status bill. More will still come. But the mindset, what you have to understand in fact, is the fact that the real issue is not the bill. The real issue is the mindset behind that bill. And that mindset did not start in 2025. It's been around for a long time. So you are done with your own region. You now enter another person's region where you have your ethnic group present. And then you make sure that people from your own ethnic group are the ones leading them. So in the East, the Igbos suppressed everybody. Again, I'm not the one saying it though. I'm not the one saying it. I'm reading a document from the Ibo National Caucus. And I've given you 3 sources. And in case you were not here when I mentioned the 3 sources, let me quickly mention it again. The original source is Ibo National Caucus Protocol. It's a document marked secret and confidential, signed by 2 people, Mbadiwe and Mbanugo. You'll find it in 3 books. So that's the original statement. I'll not tell you 3 books where you're going to find it. You'll find it in Just Before Dawn by Kolio Motosho. You find it in The Educated Elites in Nigeria by Ayondele. And then you find it in IUL collections on the Civil War. So I didn't sit down one place and just make this thing out. I didn't make it up. This is historically accurate. So essentially, I just give you 4 sources now. Okay. So there's plan for the West. There's plan for the North. We're going to get to the plans for the West and North very soon. For the Eastern minorities, the Efiks, the Bibios, the Ijos, everybody, Calabar, everybody in that place completely under control, and their dreams for having their own state completely shattered. So they are done with the East, their own region. They now went to the Midwest. And look at the composition of the Midwest. What did you have in the Midwest? The Edo were about over 600,000 in number at the time. So when you say Edo back then, you are saying Benin, Esako, Auchi, again, but the other side, you call all of them Edo. They were over 600,000. The Urobo and Isoko were about 300 plus. The Ibos were about 300 plus. The Shekiri too were there. Now, when we get to the point about state creation, I'm saying again, I'm going to read this document again. So please don't be tired of it. And I'm doing it because I'm trying to make a point. Because without this background, everything that happens will look like witch hunt until you understand the basics, right? Or the basis for the actions. Now, when they were creating, I was going to say something now. All right, I remember. The majority ethnic group in the Midwest was the Edo. Now, when they were trying to create the Midwest state, the primary person in terms of, I mean, a lot of people were there. Dennis Osadebe was already in the Western Parliament. Again, Osadebe was in Ibadan, representing that part of the Western region. But it was an NCNC. And when we get to that point, we'll discuss it again. There were about 27 members from those provinces, or those two provinces, and 6 of them were action group, 21 of them were in NCNC. So NCNC dominated that place. But apart from the politicians, the major person that was fighting for this was Oba of Benin. The Oba was fighting for it because he also knew that, I mean, just like Yorubas were the majority in the Western region and the Igbos were the majority in the Eastern region, the Edo will be the majority in the Midwestern region. Therefore, it makes sense for him to assume that they will be the one to hold political power in the new region when created. And so he was working with Osadebe and with Azikiwe. We'll talk about it very soon in details. But the point I'm trying to make is that by the time they were done, they ensured that the person that they put in power was an Igbo man in that region. It's exactly the same that happened a few years down the line. This was in 63. By 67, the same thing happened again. When, after Biafra invaded the Midwest, Ojukwu insisted that the person that would be the governor, so to speak, the governor of what they call the Republic of Benin, was going to be a man called John Conrad Nwanwo. Conrad Nwanwo was an Igbo man from the Midwest, and he was the one that essentially allowed the Igbos to enter into the Midwest, contrary to what his Oga, David Ejo, wanted at the time. But you see, Victor Banjo was against Nwanwo because he was like, Nwanwo is Igbo. Why not choose somebody else who is not Igbo? So that people will not think that you're making this an Igbo affair. Why not pick someone like David Ejo, who is Yoruba? Why not pick someone like Ogbemudia, who is Edo, or Trimnel, who is the Shekiri? Ojukwu changed his mind. He didn't pick Nwanwo anymore, but he picked another man called Alberto Okonkwo, who was also Igbo. It's the same mindset. The idea is you're going to use your ethnicity, not just at home where you have the majority, not just in your region where you have the majority, but even in other regions where you are the minority, but they must be the ones leading because you have a plan for Nigeria. These are the people that call you tribalists. That's what I'm trying to tell you. So he says here, despite the intrigues of Okotiebo, who, by the way, eventually was unalived 2 years after this, in fact, less than 6 years after this statement was released, Okotiebo was killed. Make of that whatever you like. Despite the intrigues of Okotiebo and Omosage, we'll talk about all these people in detail later. We have succeeded in clamping Osadebe firmly on the Midwest saddle, thus taking care of Urobo, Edo, and Ishekiri. In other words, the ethnic groups in the Midwest taken care of, ethnic groups in the Eastern region taken care of. Then he said, Okwara, talking about the premier of the Eastern region, Okwara showed his hands too quickly last year, 1963, when he was overconfident that the census figures would be to our advantage and that the struggle was almost won. I've mentioned here before that there was a crisis in 1963 after the census, came out, when the North they had a huge number, and then the West and the East had smaller numbers, and the East threatened to secede in 1963. As a matter of fact, they put in motion certain committees to look at the viability of a separate nation. This was in 63. So they are saying that the Okwara was too bold in the things that he was doing when he said he was going to secede and things like that, because he was overconfident. Sorry, before the census figures came out, he was too bold in the things he was saying, that they were going to do this, they were going to do that, because he was too sure they will have big numbers. Then he said he would have pampered Fani Kayode till an NCNC victory in the regional West elections was secure. Then we could have ruthlessly dispensed with him. If you are Yoruba obedient, or this Yoruba politician supporting Kini in the name of fairness, this is the plan. It was the plan, it is the plan. You'll be used and dumped. It says we could have ruthlessly dispensed with him and put okay, so let me even say from the beginning. Say he would have pampered Fani Kayode till an NCNC victory in the regional West elections was secure. Then we could have ruthlessly dispensed with him and put a more amenable person like Akinfo Shile in the saddle. It's interesting, isn't it? Then he says here, play up Awolowo at all times. No, they did not kill RFK. They didn't kill Remi Fani Kayode. They took him to Lagos and they released him there. They didn't kill Fani Kayode. Nah. It was Akintola who was killed, not... Remi Fani Kayode was in the vehicle that they took to Lagos and then it was released. All right, back to this. Play up Awolowo at all times. This will keep up the resistance of action group members. Again, this is not NCNC. They're not speaking as NCNC. They are speaking as Igbo State Union. So this has gone beyond. This has gone beyond party. This is an ethnic group having plans for another ethnic group and their region, wanting the party where they are the majority to win in that other region. In case you don't understand, I'm sure you get it, but just to make it a bit clearer, imagine Afenifere having plans for what would happen. Let me say Afenifere, Egbe Oduduwa, because that's the best group to compare. Imagine Egbe Oduduwa planning what would happen in Eastern region. I mean, if AG was planning that thing, that would make sense because it's a political party. You are trying to dominate different places, Abi. But what Kilokon cultural group with the politics of other people's regions? Let me read a few more stuff. It says, play up Awolowo at all times. This will keep up the resistance of action group members and stop them from uniting with the NNDP to form a solid Yoruba front. NNDP was the party that was formed by Akintola, named after the one that was formed by Herbert Macaulay, Nigerian National Democratic Party. And so they are saying, let us use media to talk about how great Awolowo is. Not because we are saying Awolowo is great, but because the more we talk about that, the more it will be difficult for Yoruba people to form a union. Again, if NTNC was writing this sincerely, I'll have no problem with it. You know why? It's a political party. You do anything to win, as long as it's legal. These guys are not a political party. This is a cultural organization. So you're talking to their members, use the media. It says, play up Awolowo at all times. This will keep up the resistance of action group members and stop them from uniting with NNDP to form a solid Yoruba front. This is vital, and there is no harm in this pro-Awolowo propaganda. For he is no longer a headache or danger to us. Why? They got him imprisoned in 1963. So that's what they want to do for Yoruba people. That's why when you read Wole Soyinka's book, You Must Set Forth at Dawn, he mentioned how Okpara helped them, how they had a radio station where they were talking about how great Awo was. What he did not realize was that even he himself, I don't know if he knows it now, but he was being used. They had all these gadgets that they put in place to ensure that, you know, they were talking about the greatness of Awolowo, putting it out there in the open. But while Papa was in prison, but in reality, it was planned in such a way that the Western region would be weakened politically. It wasn't out of love. See, if again, I know the reason I'm repeating this thing again and again. If a political party is having all this kini, is okay. Maybe not okay, but at least I can understand. But the group that goes all over the place, calling everybody tribalist, this is the plan they had. They said they could be the key players, founders of they are not the founders of NCNC. I repeated this thing like 1,000 times. NCNC was founded by Yoruba people. The first president of NCNC was about Macaulay. There were about 4 groups that founded NCNC that came together. NCNC was like a coalition when it started. You had the NNDP, that was about Macaulay's own party, Nigeria National Democratic Party. You had the Lagos Market Women Association that was led by Alimotu Kwelewura. That's the predecessor, that's this woman's predecessor, Mama Abibatu Mogaji, the president's mother, was Kwelewura's successor. So she was also, the president's mother was also part of the Market Women Association at the time when they came together to form NCNC. The third group was TUC, the Trade Union Congress. And then the fourth one was the Nigerian Student Movement, the one from Ake, from Abeokuta, and all the other students from Lagos. Everybody came together and they all joined NCNC. NCNC was not formed by Igbo people. I think we should be repeating this thing because Egbe handicap. Number, I'm looking for something. So it's not like you have people who have any. There's something I'm looking for. I thought I found it. We'll come back to this later. Somebody said Shoyinka was a repentant Yoruba bot back then. Thank God Baba is in. So Shoyinka was not a Yoruba bot like that. Shoyinka was, because these words have different meanings today. Shoyinka had this mindset of, you know what, is Yoruba bot? Man, them never explain anything. Most of them back then, they were just like, you know, this naive thing of we're all together, we'll be fine. Yeah, it's Yoruba bot, sadly. It was. He was. Burujai. Mr. Latunji, thank you. All right, we're going to get back into this eventually. I want to read to you something from Shoyinka's book, actually. If I find it, mark halfway. Mumbo. Ukonu, I think that's his name. Ukonu, that's the name I was looking for. Ukonu. Ukonu was one of the people that helped with the broadcast. That's the name I was looking for. The whole idea was not really about the people. The whole idea was not really about us. It was just, they are going to use you to prop up AWO. You will not see anything wrong with it because AWO should be propped up, right? But the real reason for doing it for them is so that they can create a dichotomy between AWO's followers and Akintola's followers, so that if they have any reason to come together to form any, coalition, it will never work. Again, these are the people that call everybody tribalist. Let's continue. Let me take that part again. Play up Awolowo at all times. This will keep up the resistance of Action Group members and stop them from uniting with the NNDP to form a solid Yoruba front. This is vital, and there is no harm in this pro-Awolowo propaganda, for he is no longer a headache or danger to us. We are happy that our protocol on cessation of newspaper attacks on Sardauna and other northern leaders have stopped. In other words, when they say, so you have writers in newspapers just insulting Sardauna. It's what you are seeing on Twitter. What you're seeing on Twitter right now, where people are just dedicated to insulting groups, insulting a person, insulting an ethnic group. That's what they were doing back then. And it says, we are happy that our protocol on cessation of newspaper attacks on Sardauna and other northern leaders have stopped. Amechi and Okafo are to be complimented so far. They are the ones in charge of newspaper attacks. Now we are done with it. They're done with the South, with the East, with the Midwest, with the West, now with the North. So he says, everything must be done to appear to appease the Sardauna and Ribadu. Who was Ribadu? It was the Minister of Defense. Baliwa was the Prime Minister. But the real power at the time was in the north, was the Sardauna. So he said, we must appear to appease the Sardauna and the Minister of Defense, who was Ribadu. He said, but Balewa we can always deal with. By the way, that one was killed 2 years after this. I'm not saying they killed him. I'm just trying to explain to you. This thing ties very neatly to I'm trying to remember this title, this document title. Oh boy, it was published in 1966. Special Branch Report. Special Branch Report. They mentioned it there that certain people, you know what, it's not today's topic. Certain people who were even civilians were part of those who planned the coup of 1966. Special Branch Report. That report is in our Telegram channel. If you remember, you will be able to access it. So he says, everything must be done to appear to appease the Sardauna and Ribadu, but Balewa we can always deal with. If we can then win the West, who are the we? NCNC? No. By this time, to be clear, NCNC had essentially become an Igbo party. This year that they published this thing is the exact same year the white paper in Radio Me channel, that white paper on political alignments that was published by Western Nigeria, that year was the same year they published that document. You see, the beauty of history is you have to find the correlations. Where they were writing these ones, the Yoruba people were complaining about what was happening in the civil service. That document is also in our Radio Me channel. It says here, if we, the we here is not NCNC. The we here is the Igbo State Union using the NCNC as a political vehicle. If we can then win the West at the next regional election by keeping the Yoruba divided, we shall secure control of the federal cabinet and the country. Not in 1964 as we envisaged, but in 1969. 5 years may be a long time in our personal lives, but to a people such as ours, it is further time for preparation. When an ethnic group is trying to win other people's regions, why do you think I speak like this about interference, certain people's interference in Yoruba politics? This is not even about political party. The party is just a tool. It's just a vehicle. He said it here. You should have played Fani Kayode. Let him think Big Mweshianyo. And when we are done with him, we'll discard him. And then we'll put somebody more malleable like Akin Foshile. In other words, they will always find Yoruba people that can do their bidding. But they will always fail. You know why? Because nobody is stopping you from developing your place. What is it about this thing, about other people's territories? Now, I'm giving an idea of what was happening back in the day. And to understand the predicament that Papa and other Yoruba people must have found themselves when they were constantly heckled and attacked for founding Egbe Oduduwa in Yoruba land. And the group that is founding that is against them also have their own ethnic group association, not in their own land, though, in the same Yoruba land. Let's go back into this. So, if this was a plan in 64, you can imagine what the objectives of Igbo State Union was. When you read their books, which I have, and I read one of them yesterday, all they say is that it's because they wanted to thrive in foreign lands. Somebody says, so when all these plans didn't work out as they wanted, they went to war in 67. No. When it didn't work, when the plans did not work as they wanted, they planned a coup in 65. Between 64 and 67, many things happened. Many lives were lost. And even as I'm saying this now, it's God that's protecting us. But certain people cannot be trusted. That's what you're talking about. It's like 10 years from, because it's 2 years old, but the thing will happen between 64 and 67. Plenty things happened. So many things happened. I made it very clear that, you know, the kind of plan that certain people have for Nigeria. I'm trying to open another document I'm going to read out, you know, soon. But let's get back into this. When last election, they tried political means, wanted Peter Obi to win. Peter Obi lost. When Buhari tried that and lost, he was angry because he's human. He wanted to win by all means. He didn't win. So what did he do? He went back to the drawing board. He shouted, but he went back to the drawing board. Not once did you hear it was because of his ethnic group. When these guys, I mean, I said these guys because if you are giving almost 90% of your votes to a single candidate from your region, essentially it's an Ibo agenda, Ibo candidate. After they lost, what did they do? Anybody remembers? In fact, others has even written the answer there. They shouted military takeover. That's what they did. What happened exactly the same way in the 1960s. They tried the political means. There was a constitutional crisis in 1964 that caused even Balewa to put Azikiwe under house arrest. It was during that crisis that Ojukwu planned his own coup. Ojukwu reached out to Azikiwe. You find this in the forgotten documents of the Nigerian Civil War by Odia of Fairmont. Ojukwu reached out to Azikiwe that they should plan a coup. Ojukwu also reached out to Basi, to Victor Banjo, to Yakubu Gowon, and to David Ejo. And what I just said right now, you will find it in Reminisce. That's the book by Reminiscences, the book by David Ejo. When certain people try political means, if it doesn't work, they will switch to military. And that's why, as soon as that election was lost in 2023, people lined up in front of defense headquarters and said, you know, that the army should do the needful. Who speaks like this? Who talks like this? You lost an election, the army should take over. But guess what? It's a pattern. That's what I'm trying to tell you. It's a pattern. And back then, thank you. What they had back then, they don't have now. Back then, they had a lot of officers who were Igbos. Now they don't. And did it work back then? Yes, it did. I read a document this morning. Somebody was writing how the coup of 66 failed. It didn't fail. You would think it failed because you're looking at one coup. You cannot understand that event if you're looking at one event. If you're looking at one coup, you can't understand that history if you're looking at one event. It wasn't one event. And I've said it several times. There were at least 2 coups on that day. At least 2. Ẹkáàbọ. Welcome. At least 2. The revolutionary coup failed, but the ethnic coup succeeded. And I can even prove that there were more than 2 coups. But we'll stay with the 2. Because a small will put the thing out. Because if it's too much, it might teach you. So there. At least those 2 we can talk about for now. When it's time, I'll tell you about another coup that happened. There's another coup that happened that same day. That same day, that 15th. The 2 coups, one coup happened before the one you knew. The one that started at 2 o'clock. That's the coup to Shekotovese, Tawon, Nzogu, Adewale Ademega. That's the revolutionary coup. There was the ethnic coup that was running alongside. Well, it actually started before that coup, but it was running alongside. There's another one that was running alongside as well, but was triggered after everything had happened in the morning. That started in the afternoon. The truth, they were not. you can't count less than 3 coups, but I'll just say at least 2. That third one day, I've talked about it before. Another day, I'm going to talk about it in detail. Why is this important? So that you can know what's happening. You don't get the people come around and say, it started in 2025, it started in 2023, all these elections, or in Yoruba, you guys just became bigots, you know. You introduced tribalism. It's Nobu's fault. It's not. I'm reading a document from 64 that was written in 44. For a group that was created in 36, that had a branch in London in 43, that was against Yoruba people having their own branch in 45. They now started a campaign of calumny in 48 in Yoruba land. Kini Igungo. Let's get back into this. So we've read about the plans that the Ibo State Union had. We also read about the objectives of the Egbe Oduduwa. If you are a human being that fears God, which group should people be against? Answer that question to yourself. It's a rhetorical question. Which group should people be against? Why would you be against a group? Let me read the Yoruba Egbe Oduduwa plan. Let me read the objectives. Number 1, to encourage, especially by means of scholarship awards by the society, the pursuit of secondary and university education among Yoruba boys and girls. Number 2, to recognize and maintain the monarchical and other similar institutions of Yoruba land, to plan for their complete enlightenment and democratization. Then 3, to strive earnestly to cooperate with other ethnical associations in matters of common interest to all Nigerians, so as thereby to attain to unity in federation. Please, let's tap. It's Thursday, but we still have to tap on Thursday. So please, let's power tap on TikTok. If on YouTube, please like the live. Thank you very much for being here. We need more people to like the live on YouTube and also share. Thanks a lot. And please subscribe as well. So, if a people have this group, what then happened from the other side? Let me read it to you. The reaction of Dr. Azikiwe and all his supporters to the newly formed Egbe was violent beyond compare. All the leaders of the Egbe were vilified in Dr. Azikiwe's newspapers. The high watermark of the campaign was reached in the following extract from an editorial article in the Pilot of September 8, 1948. This is what was published in Zik's paper. But now that the Egbe has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally, who are you? What makes you so important that an entire Egbe was formed for your sake? It says, now that the Egbe has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally, and even against Igbos as a group, but against the aspirations of 27 million Nigerians backing up the NCNC, the time has come for real action. Number 1, why would Egbe's existence be a threat to a political party? Do you know what was really happening? Should I tell you what was really happening? I thought you wouldn't ask. So let me tell you what was really happening. What was really happening is this. The Igbos knew they were in Yoruba land. They had numbers, but not as much. They also knew that they couldn't do much, but they had to plead or... I'm looking for a word. They had to speak as though what was happening was against a group that was bigger than the ethnic group, in this case, NCNC. If you are in Lagos, Yoruba land, and you're against what some people are doing, and you know that your numbers don't count for much compared to the owners of the land, what else can you use to whip up sentiments against those people? Their own people. So what do? You say this thing is not against our ethnic group, it's against the 27 million Nigerians who are supporting NCNC. In other words, the people in this organization and all our supporters are being threatened by the existence of Egbe Oduduwa. Don't forget, NCNC is a political party. Egbe Oduduwa is a cultural organization. So if you really are thinking straight, even if you're going to call Egbe Oduduwa a threat to anything, it would be a threat to Ibo State Union, but you couldn't call it a threat to NCNC because it wasn't a political party. let's continue. In fact, let me go back and read from beginning. But now that the Egbe has made it clear, this was in September 8, 1948. Not 2028 or 2020, no, not 2023 or 2008, 1948. But now that the Egbe is in Yoruba land. I'm sorry if I'm repeating this thing, but the Egbe is in Yoruba land. They are Yoruba people. They organize a Yoruba group for themselves. You are an Ibo man. You live in Yoruba land, but you're against the existence. And now you are saying that the Egbe has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally, and even against Igbos as a group, but against the aspirations of the 27 million Nigerians backing up the NCNC. The time has come for real action. Henceforth, the cry must be one of battle against the Egbe Oduduwa. Its leaders at home and abroad, uphill and down dale, in the streets of Nigeria and in the residence of its advocates, the Egbe Oduduwa is the enemy of Nigeria. It must be crushed to the earth. There is no going back until the fascist organization of Sir Adeyemo Alakija has been dismembered. Apart from newspaper attacks, there were also physical assaults on the persons of the leaders of the Egbe and damage to the houses and other property of some of them. It was absolutely impossible on nationalist grounds to reconcile Dr. Azikiwe's insensate hostility to the Egbe with his presidency of the Ibo Federal Union and his obvious condonation of the existence of a similar organization founded in the Northern region in May 1948 and called Jamiya Mutanen Arewa Northern People's Congress. In other words, you are the president of Ibo Federal Union. You are against Yoruba people having their organizations, but you condone the North having theirs. Why? Because you definitely see Yoruba as a threat. What you really wanted was to dominate. I mean, from what you've read here now, what does this look like? You're dominating southern Nigeria. By the time you get into the conversations about the war, what you're going to see is the fact that not only were they after southern Nigeria, they also wanted the entire nation. There were papers, there were secret papers from Biafra war that confirm what I'm just saying now to be so. It's just about taking over, and on top of waiting, with a mindset of slaves. Because you have to have a very terrible mindset to think that you can threaten a person in his own land and discourage them from having an organization. Meanwhile, you have your own foreign organization in their land, and you are the president of that organization. And also, the North has something similar, but you have nothing against that. Besides, in spite of his protestations to the contrary, Dr. Azikiwe was himself an unabashed Igbo jingoist, and he gave the game completely away when he said inter alia in his presidential address to the Igbo Federal Union in 1949. This again was published in West African Pilot. What did he say? Take a listen to this. It says here, it would appear that the God of Africa has specially created the Ibo nation. Again, Zik was no Pan-African. All the talk about Zik Pan-African nationalist nonsense, but a person who says that a team from Onitsha, a football team, secondary school boys, won the match against St. Gregory's in Lagos because they had exceptionally developed brains. They were superior. And who is now saying that the Igbo nation was specially created by God is the one you want me to believe when we're talking about federalism or we're talking about nation building? Of course not. And this mindset of we are better than everybody, they still carry it all over the place. Could they sing a come bear if we live for sing a can? It says it would appear, this is Zik talking in 1949. And by the way, this meeting was held in Aba. It was a speech that he then published in his papers. He said it would appear that the God of Africa has specially created the Igbo nation to lead the children of Africa from the bondage of the ages. The martial prowess of the Igbo nation at all stages of human history, which we can find, has enabled them not only that which you can't find, that's me, because I've looked for that martial prowess, me already. Anyway, the martial prowess of the Igbo nation at all stages of human history has enabled them not only to conquer others, but also to adapt themselves to the role of preserver. The Igbo nation cannot shirk its responsibility. That's the one that talks about the superiority. The second, so Baba used to toss coin. He would toss the coins. there's a particular coin that Zik had. The head was superiority, the tail was victimhood. Let me read to you about something about the tail. Politically, you have seen with your own eyes how you were disenfranchised by the British. The Ibo nation has never been represented in the Executive Council. Economically, the Ibo nation has labored under onerous taxation measures without sufficient social amenities to justify same. We have been taxed without representation, and our contributions in taxes have been used to develop other areas out of proportion to the incidence of taxation in those areas. What I just read right now does not sound like what you will hear today. We are the ones taking care of Nigeria. Have you not heard it? It was this week, right? FRAC allocation to different groups in Nigeria, different regions in Nigeria came out. Revenue generation in different regions came out. What they do in 2025, telling you that they are the ones feeding Nigeria, is what this man was doing in 1949. How do I know that he was lying? Because the Governor General of Nigeria at the time, Sir Arthur Richards, literally put out a message saying that a particular region was, this was in 1947, by the way. I've read it here before. That night, what is irritating? Is it what I'm reading or the fact that I'm reading it? I want to know, so I'll know exactly how to respond. Knight, please respond. What is irritating right now? Is it what I'm reading? Is it what I'm reading, or the fact that I am reading it? Thank you as I await your response. The Igbo is okay. Thank you, Knight. Thank you. Please, everybody, please remember, especially on TikTok, I take your comments very seriously. So I take it like, since I'm the only person on stage, reading what you're saying helps me because it's feedback, so it feels like I'm talking, like we are talking back and forth. But because you are typing, remember also that for the most part, meanings get lost in translation when you're typing, right? So please make it very clear so that it will be easy for us to work together, all right? Thank you very much for understanding. Where was I?
I was saying that Sir Arthur Richards in 1947 put out a statement.
I was saying that Sir Arthur Richards in 1947 put out a statement. I've read it here. And you know what? Maybe I should read it one more time. 1 second. It will not take me long to find it. It's the same thing you see here today. Somebody comes and says, is the money from the Eastern region? I say, which money? What does the Eastern region have? Everybody is blessed, but whatever you have, to be honest, in Nigeria at the moment is more potential than anything else. And it's important that we talk about these things. Don't be say anybody, they fight anybody, but just because your parents were able to lie and get away with it doesn't mean you should do the same. I'll read this thing. This is from Sir Arthur Richards. He was the governor and commander-in-chief of Nigeria. And he made this statement on 28th January 1947 at a meeting of the Colonial Affairs Study Group of the Empire Parliamentary Association. This is what he said. The Eastern provinces, the part of Nigeria which is most vocal and which clamors and calls for more education and for more of everything, is the part which contributes less than the other two regions to the general revenue. And it is also the part upon which the government has been spending most. When was this? 28th January 1947. So when you hear this thing of is our money that is running this place, is a lie. It's a lie. You have to sell the narrative to feel like a victim. And Ezekwe did that one. If he did nothing else, he did that one. And he was smart to do it. But it's a very terrible thing for the people, because what happens is that the people, although they know that what they are doing doesn't correlate with reality, it is difficult for them to change their minds. Because to change their minds would mean that they are betraying the collective. And this is not just for Igbos, even for you as a person, if you have this mindset of, this is why, let me finish my thoughts. If you have the mindset of I'm a victim, it will amount to nothing. This is why I do not like conversations about see what the British did. It's not because British did nothing. It's because that mindset, what does it really do for you? Apart from crying and feeling bad. See what they did. The British did this. We are here because of this. Oh, look at the document. For instance, I saw a document last week. Terrible stuff, by the way, from Henry Kissinger was the Secretary of State at the time, the 1970s. And what they said about Nigeria and Mexico and Pakistan and Brazil and stuff. So some people were talking about it, so I decided to go and get the document itself. Because, of course, now it's out in the open, it's declassified. Everybody was saying, oh, look at what America had for us. See, they wanted to destroy us. When they were saying, everybody was just angry, and I hate that emotion because you can't do anything with it. It's an emotion that keeps you perpetually under. See what they did. America did this in the 1970s. So I took the document and I read, it's bad. To be clear, it's bad. But Brazil was on that list. Where's Brazil now? Where's Nigeria now? As soon as I saw, the countries are many. Once I saw that Brazil, I was like, okay, chill. I don't have to be angry. All that thing that people do, especially with all due respect, Black Americans do this thing a lot. I've never said it before. I'll say it now. Some people send me some materials from Black Americans, and I thank you for it, but I don't really care for them. You know why? There's a particular period in my life where I consumed some materials from the Black American culture about history. I thank God that I read it, but never again. It's based on pain. It keeps you weak. Everybody is the problem. Everybody did this to you. This is what has happened. This is what they have done. I've been the victim. You will continue to be a victim for life. What you're saying is not a lie, oh. But because that is the level that you think, you cannot go beyond it. You go back and read certain books that the blacks wrote before all of this became, all this victimized. By the way, American politics makes victimization a very fun thing to do. People like it. It can give you some kind of leverage, but it's dangerous for your own mind and it's dangerous for your children. I'm the victim. Hey, see me. Oh. Everybody say, hey, sorry, David and Goliath. Goliath must be the one at fault. Let's go and meet David. Sometimes it is the David that is doing problem, that is causing wahala. And even if Goliath did that thing to you, what did David do when he was looking at Goliath? Was he crying? Hey, see, Goliath is so big. Oh, we are not the victim. No, he charged. The Bible says he charged against him. He charged forward. With his stone and sling, he was small, but he brought that guy down. You're not trying to bring anything down. You're not trying to remove any obstacle. You're just crying and whimpering. It is pathetic. It is weak. People hear you and they're like, okay, that's it. In the beginning, they'll be like, okay, we must fight for you. It is wrong. It is unfair. After a while, they just get tired and say, are you the only one that suffered? That's what happens in life. So if your entire identity is built around suffering, you can't make progress. You can probably use it to get ahead, but the psychological damage will never be healed. And this is true for everybody, not just about Igbos. It's just the way life works, because you are not taking responsibility for anything. The reason I'm here is because of what my father did. It's because of what my mother did. My sister did something. My friend did something. And everything I'm saying is true. It's not like you're lying, no. You are telling the truth. But you have given them the power. Which means that you cannot leave that place because they are the ones that put you there. So they have to be the ones to take you out of there. Why am I saying this? If in 1947, by the way, let me finish what I was saying about Black Americans because I don't want to make it hang. Black Americans have fantastic innovations, fantastic inventions. Some of the things that we now enjoy in the world today were invented by blacks. E.g., traffic lights. E.g., refrigerating system. There's a man that I want to recommend that you study if you have the time. His name is George Washington Carver. Was a black man. That man, for me, I think is one of the greatest scientists ever. The man brought out 200 products out of groundnut, 250 products out of soybeans. If you see a person bringing out ink from groundnut, bringing out cream and relaxer from Ekpa, that's somebody that I respect. And I believe that is the story that Black Americans need to hear, more than this old thing about they did this to us. Because the people that did that thing to you, they did it to them too. Read European history and see what Europeans did to themselves. Forget color. Slavery has nothing to do with color. When Europeans dealt with themselves, everything they did to us, they did to themselves. It was about power. You have power, you terrorize people. It is wrong, oh. It is terrible. But you cannot get out of that cycle if you don't take back that power. It might take you a while, but you must be committed to it. That's what England did. England was colonized for a very long time by Rome. It took them a while, but eventually got something and they made something out of it. Like all this thing of whimpering, crying, the English did this to us, we are here. That is why we are not growing. It is not what they did, it's how we are interpreting what they did. That's our problem in Africa, especially in Nigeria. I'm staying in Nigeria for now. You're having conversations, say, you see what they did. You, show Oreo, can you not create something better for yourself all these years? And I'm not saying what they did to us was good. The same thing, I wouldn't say what they did to the Black Americans was good. Of course, it was terrible. But when you hear stories of people like the man I mentioned earlier, George Washington Carver, when you hear people like, his surname is Thomas, his first name is a feminine name. He used to be in Johns Hopkins Hospital. Didn't go to medical school, but some of the tools they use in medicine and in surgery today were invented by him. Vivian Thomas. When you look at, as a Black American and a Black person, when you look at those stories, there's something it does to you. And when you look at the trajectory of the Black culture, for instance, and I'm not saying that it's all their fault. The whites have their own, see, everything they say about them is true. This is not about denying the reality. Everything they say is true. But the conclusions are wrong. Because if your conclusion is that the reason you are here is because of everything they did, it means that you have given them the right, they are the only ones that can take you out of where you are. So your facts may be correct, but if your conclusion is off, you are perpetually condemned to that state. And that's why when you study the trajectory of Black culture in America up until the 1920s and 30s, you see that it's totally different from what happened after Lyndon Johnson. All the people that pamper them and placate them with all this welfareism and stuff, it became worse. I mean, by the way, if you like Black, I like to read a man which a lot of Black people hate. And I've had conversations with Black Americans on this. They hate Thomas Sowell. Want to understand how to get ahead rather than let us have pity party. Back to Nigeria. There are people in Nigeria who throw pity parties every other day. And they do that. Sometimes the facts are right, sometimes it's propaganda. But the goal is not even about the sources of the fact. The goal is about weaponizing empathy. Oh, we are the victims. Oh, we are attached to that representation. It was so bad that even Oyinbo civilian government had to say, wait, let's look at our document. Who they pay tax pass for this country? North, West, East. East, they pay the least now. How come East they cry pass? You pay the least, you cry the most. And let me read to you again what the Governor General said in 1947, in case you just came in. And then I'll read to you what Azikiwe said. This thing, it has stayed. This is Sir Arthur Richards, the Governor and Commander-in-Chief of Nigeria. This was on 20th January 1947. He says, the eastern provinces, the part of Nigeria which is most vocal and which clamors and calls for more education and for more of everything, is the part which contributes less than the other two regions to the general revenue. And it is also the part upon which the government has been spending most. Let me tell you what Zik said. It says here, economically, the Ibo nation has labored under onerous taxation measures without sufficient social amenities to justify same. We have been taxed without representation, and our contributions in taxes have been used to develop other areas out of proportion to the incidence of taxation in those areas. The government is saying, no, you have actually gotten more than you have contributed. But no, you have to play the victim. It says, it will seem that the Ibo nation is becoming a victim of economic annihilation through a gradual but studied process. Who's saying this? Zik. When? 1949. Tell me if this is different from what Nnamdi Kanu will say, or even Ojukwu or Simon Ekpa. Should they continue saying it? I have no problem with them saying anything, if you like. I'm not against them saying whatever they are saying. It's okay. What I'm against is Yoruba people getting bamboozled into believing these things and then jettisoning common sense because you're naive, or we are naive. Let me put it that way, because we're all together. We can't afford to be naive. Naivety is the only way. What happened in this, I'm trying not to jump. I'll get to it before we go. Boys, 341. We're going to close very soon. Let's go back to Baba's book. I was going to tell you what happened in 1948, but I don't want to rush. Number. I will do it. After this one, I'll quickly do it. Then we'll move on. In 1948, another Igbo leader, actually it's 1945. In 1945, another Igbo leader and a member of the Nigerian Legislative Council, in 1945, another Igbo leader and a member of the Nigerian Legislative Council had declared the domination of Nigeria by the Igbos is a question of time. Who is the Igbo leader? Anybody? Anybody? We're in class. Who is the Igbo leader that said the Igbo domination of Nigeria is only a matter of time? He said it in 1945. We're in class, ba? So who is the Igbo leader? By the way, no. Onyema, yes. It was C.D. Onyema. Charles Onyema. Papa is quoting him here. Just like Anthony Nauro quoted him also in 68. How are you? It was clear from these statements and from the general political and journalistic maneuvers of Dr. Azikiwe over the years that his great objective was to set himself up as a dictator over Nigeria and to make the Igbo nation the master race. It would appear, according to his reckoning, that the only obstacle in the path of his ambition was the Yoruba intelligentsia. And this must be removed at all costs. A situation in which one ethnic group would dominate the others does not accord with my conception of a united and happy Nigeria. I am implacably opposed to dictatorship as well as the doctrine of Ehrenfolk, whether it was Hitler's or Dr. Azikiwe's. In the same 1945, I'm coming back to 1948 later. In the same year 1945, as the Egbe was founded in London, a white paper entitled Proposals for the I'll take that again. In the same year 1945, as the Egbe was founded in London, a white paper entitled Proposals for the Revision of the Constitution of Nigeria was published simultaneously in Nigeria and London. The objects of the proposed constitution as contained in the white paper were to promote the unity of Nigeria. You know what, I'm going to come back to this paper. This is a it's going to take us another trajectory. But before we leave today, let me quickly tell you what happened with Egbe and how everything eventually came to a head. I'm going to have to leave Papa's book for a minute. What if Papa's book for a minute? I want to tell you a bit about this Egbe thing. So we already heard what Zik said when he said, and I'll read again. Now the Egbe has made it clear that its battle is not really against Dr. Azikiwe personally and even against Igbos as a group, but against the aspirations of the 27 million Nigerians backing up the NCNC. The time has come for real action. Henceforth, the cry must be one of battle against the Egbe Oduduwa, its leaders at home and abroad, uphill and down dale, in the streets of Nigeria, and in the residence of its advocates. The Egbe Oduduwa is the enemy of Nigeria. It must be crushed to the earth. There is no going back until the fascist organization of Sade Molakija has been dismembered. Like Papa said, there were physical assaults on the members of the Egbe by Azikiwe's people. I'll read a few more things. I want to finish on this Egbe. Tomorrow we're going to continue with the proposal of that Egbe put out in 1945. So I'm going to jump to 1948. This thing that started in 45 led to something in Nigeria's history called the Lagos Press War of 1948. And remember what Odutola said in 1940. I don't know if you were here when the Ogbeni of Ijebu, the chief Adeola Odutola, said, this new Africa thing that Zik brought will not help us. Let me find it and read it because it's important. The elders have told us certain things. I don't think we listen, but we have to. We must. That's the only way we won't repeat all these errors. Or at least know how to deal with it when they repeat it. Odutola said, during the days of our old Africa, the Ibos and Yorubas lived together as Nigerians. It seems to me, therefore, that the remedy for the present troubles is this. Azikiwe has brought his new Africa from America. Azikiwe has brought his new Africa from America. He should return it there either by post or by taking it back there personally. If need be, his passage to and fro should be paid by the movement. But mark this. Please, everybody listen. You mark this. We all should mark this. But mark this, he concluded. Unless this Azikiwe's brand of New Africa is done away with, there will be no harmony in this country. Ibukoluwa, Jaja did not say Igbo domination will happen in Nigeria. Jaja said Lagos was a no man's land in 1947. It's a different thing. Mumbo, I want to see if I should read it now. I should wait till I get into MacPherson Constitution. Give me a second, please. Let's read now. So I'm going to read from a book called Between the Ethnic and the National by Remi Adekoya. Between the Ethnic and the National by Remi Adekoya. It says here, meanwhile, with regards to ethnic relations between Igbos and Yorubas, the reason I first read the one by Chief Odutola is to tell you that before Zik, everybody was fine. The Igbos were in Yoruba land, but they knew their place. And the Yoruba people welcomed them, and nobody was against them. Zik came back from the US in 1937, and we have not rested since then. He came back with this idea that we are all one. We must be one. We must own the land together. We are all here. We all have rights. There's no basis for aristocracy. If you think I'm lying, please, I recommend two books. Renaissance Africa, that Zik published in 1937, and my Odyssey, that he published in 1970. Read those two books. You just be wondering, where are you from? Like, are you from the earth? Did they ship you from another planet? Like, just out of touch with reality. But Odutola said, unless this Azikiwe's brand of New Africa is done away with, there will be no harmony in this country. That concept of New Africa, now waiting without the carry since that time. Now to Remi Adekoya's work. He says, meanwhile, with regards to ethnic relations between Igbos and Yorubas, a significant event deserving special attention during the Richard's Constitutional era was the so-called Lagos Press War of 1948 between Azikiwe's newspapers, in particular the West African Pilot and the Daily Service, which had by now become the mouthpiece of the Yoruba Egbe Oduduwa. From the inception of the Egbe in Nigeria, with Awolowo as Secretary General, it faced accusations from Azikiwe and his media of ethnicizing politics. Azikiwe's media conveniently ignored the fact that an Ibo federal union with very similar objectives for the Igbos already existed at the time. For most of 1948, the rival papers were involved in a bitter war of words, involving personal attacks, often tainted with ethnic undertones. For instance, in response to Azikiwe's support for the establishment of a rival Yoruba sociocultural organization, the Yoruba Federal Union, in June 1948, an editorial in Daily Service was published titled "Nnamdi Azikiwe is warned not to strain the patience of Yoruba people." Let me explain what really happened. We already read what Nnamdi Azikiwe put in his West African pilot against Egbe Oduduwa. He was so threatened that he now decided to work with some Yoruba bots to create another organization called the Yoruba Federal Union as a pilot organization to the one that Yoruba people created for themselves. Ayegba, mi like kikini takpa yen, but o ti yen ayegba takpa lora rabi. Excuse me. He then spearheaded the formation of another group for Yoruba people because he was not comfortable with the fact that we had one by ourselves in our land. Let me read to you what the Yoruba people responded with in 1948 as we round up for today. The author stated in the Daily Service, this was June 1948. This is the same year we started Egbe Oduduwa, so it's not like 1,000 years later, now said, let's do something again. No, as soon as you started Egbe Oduduwa, you go and look for your own Yoruba bots who will gather and give you something that will make you feel comfortable in Yoruba land. What he really wanted was a group that he could toss to and fro. He could use anyhow he wanted. He could direct the course. Listen to this. This is from a Yoruba author responding to all the shenanigans from West African Pilot. The picture that leaves me bewildered, however, is that of Zik, an out-and-out Ibo, inaugurating a Yoruba Federal Union. It may be said in mitigation that he had but the poorest materials out of which to erect the Yoruba Federal Union, having only managed to scrape together the waifs and strays of the Yoruba race. He had no Yoruba unions to federate, for no Yoruba union would submit to the degradation of being federated by Zik. Nevertheless, the daring of the man is staggering. By attempting so openly to create divisions among the Yorubas, he is approaching the 0 hour of his checkered political career. He is playing with the trigger of a loaded gun, the muzzle of which is pointed ominously toward his own forehead. Can anyone imagine a Yoruba man in Onitsha or Unewi organizing an Igbo Federal Union? When was this? 1948. Has happened before. What you are seeing right now is merely a repetition of the past. And we speak of today not because we hate anybody, but we know that Orugbobo, we see you walking in the footsteps of your elders with the same rhetoric, with the same narrative, and we're telling you that where you are going, what you find is destruction. And nobody has to destroy you. You will self-destruct. I'm talking to those whose entire life is dedicated to what's happening in Yoruba land. People who are fighting to be voting Yoruba land. People who are telling Yoruba people what to say. People who come out and tell you that they do this to me. You know, I used to respond. I just think that you will, for some reason, assume that you can tell a Yoruba man what to say that will make you feel comfortable. Say who you be. I mean, be respectful if you're Yoruba. You're respectful, but you don't pander. We're respectful, we're honorable people. We're not trying to demonize any group, but you don't get to determine what I say. You don't count that much, to be honest. is what, you know, when people say things about there's a particular governorship candidate in Lagos the other time, and they're like, he's Yoruba. How come you guys are saying he's Yoruba? No, it's not. Once a person starts having the same rhetorics as those who have issues with Yoruba's progress in Yoruba land, we don't care whose father, who gave birth to him. He's not one of you. That is why some people will never win. They won't even win councillorship in Yoruba land. Why? They are constantly pandering. For you as a Yoruba person, you do it in the name of unity. But you don't understand what unity really means. You don't get it. Let me tell you something. Even if this thing is allowed in the East, it still will not be allowed in the West. Why? Because you have more to lose because of what happens in your land. But guess what? It will not even happen in the East. Even among the Easterners themselves, they will not allow an Ebonyi man to create an Igbo federal union for everybody. They will not allow it. Like the man said, he said the other time, the gods will not allow it. Their gods will not allow it. So what will make Zik decide that this is how Yoruba people should have their own organization? They call it Yoruba Federal Union. The sad part of this is not really about Zik. It's about the Yoruba people that they worked with. How can you, in the name of being fair, in the name of national unity, essentially just put your life at the mercy of somebody who, I don't like using the word inferior and superior, but who is always claiming is superior to you, but who in reality is actually inferior. Unity does not mean America. Unity does not mean open your house. Unity does not mean let everybody come in and do anything they like. Unity means that you can prosper, we can work together on common interest. Unity does not mean sameness. You're not going to become me. I'm not going to become you. But we can work together based on interest, not based on identity. You are not going to become me. And I definitely don't want to become you. By September of 1948, that response was in June. By September of 1948, Yoruba-Igbo hostilities had escalated to such an extent. Colonial authorities, including Governor McPherson, who we'll be discussing tomorrow, Governor McPherson feared there was real danger of actual physical violence between Igbos and Yorubas. These fears were intensified by new radicals from both sides, who started buying up all the available cutlasses in Lagos in readiness for clashes, and police presence was increased on the streets of the city. In response to alarms raised about mass cutlass purchases by Igbos, Azikiwe declared the brandishing of cutlasses and machetes were only for propaganda purposes. That is what Azikiwe said. A rather unconvincing explanation. By September 8, the hostilities had reached a fever pitch, with the pilot arguing in an editorial that henceforth the cry must be one of battle against the Egbe Oduduwa, its leaders at home and abroad, uphill and downdale, in the streets of Nigeria and in the residence of its advocates. The Egbe Oduduwa is the enemy of Nigeria. The Egbe Oduduwa is the enemy of Nigeria. It must be crushed to the earth. There is no going back until the fascist organization of Sir Adeyemo Alakija has been dismembered. Adeyemo Alakija at the time was the leader of Egbe Oduduwa. Meanwhile, at a mass meeting of Igbos in Lagos, it was declared personal attacks on Azikiwe would be considered attacks on the Ibo nation. You are telling people to go and attack the leaders of Egbe Oduduwa. People in the group, people in the group should be attacked by your people. Sorry, 1 second. All right. People in the group in Egbe Oduduwa should be attacked by your own folks. And then the Igbo people in Lagos then said, this is the craziest part of this, well, not the craziest part, one crazy episode. They said, any attack or personal attacks, even if it's just written, against Azikiwe would be considered attacks on the Igbo nation. In other words, we can insult you We can even hurt you physically. But if you dare say anything about Azikiwe, you are insulting all of us. Is what happens till today. I say something on Azikiwe, people say you are against Ibo. Ojukwu did this, you are against Ibo. Even when I'm saying what Ojukwu did is actually against Ibo. How am I against Ibo when I'm telling you what Ojukwu did against Ibo people? That mindset, no be today in start. Awolowo's response to the declaration, or to that declaration contained in the telegram to daily service editors, which I uncovered in his private home library, will be analyzed closely in a separate chapter. The situation calmed down towards the end of 1948, and Coleman asserted the most significant outcome of the press war was the politicization of Pan-Ibo Federal Union and the Pan-Yoruba Egbe Nationality Federations. In December 1948, at a Pan-Ibo conference, the Ibo Federal Union morphed into the Ibo State Union to organize the Ibo linguistic group into a political unit in accordance with the NCNC Freedom Charter. Azikiwe was elected Ibo State Union president. This naturally opened Azikiwe up to accusations from his detractors, including Awolowo, that he was in fact first and foremost an Igbo leader and not the pan-nationalist he was claiming to be, and that his NCNC party was essentially an Igbo-dominated outfit. I'll take that again. His NCNC party was essentially an Igbo-dominated outfit. Attempting to shed light on the psychological factors driving Igbo-Yoruba rivalry at the time. Let me just stop here at this point. I'll stop for now. I was going to say a number of things. For instance, by the late until Azikiwe, let me just quickly read a portion here. It says, this is from Coleman. Due to the early educational advantages of the Yorubas up until the mid-1930s, a disproportionate amount of higher positions in the civil service and business were held by Yorubas. Additionally, until Azikiwe and his NCNC emerged, Yoruba dominated political activity in Lagos. But by the late 1940s, the Igbos were fast eliminating the educational gap and becoming increasingly assertive in business and Lagos politics. This vexed many Yoruba elites, fueling intense inter-ethnic competition. That's where we are, but that's what happened, and that's what Azikiwe was about. Again, remember what Chief Oduduwa said, until Azikiwe, everybody was fine. Igbos and Yorubas lived together as Nigerians. There was harmony, there was peace, everybody could live in everywhere. But then he came with his superiority ideas that essentially destroyed the balance. And that's what we're still struggling with now. We're going to call it a date now, and then we'll continue tomorrow at 1 p.m. if there's time. Tomorrow I'm going to stay. Tomorrow I'm going to end early tomorrow as well because of something that came up. So we'll end early tomorrow as well. But then if I'm able to come back early as well, what we'll do tomorrow is that we'll start. Maybe if we can get somebody, or if we can do it in such a way that we'll start, maybe take a break, and then we'll resume after about an hour. If that can work, then we can try it tomorrow. So we can start and end at, take a break at 4, and then come back at 5. So it'll be like a conference. We'll take a break at 4, then we'll come back at 5, and then we'll continue till 7. Can that work? Can we make that work? Because I have some school runs, Mark Ben say school, I shall have children things to get done. So I have to, in fact, right now they're waiting for me. I have to quickly pick them. So tomorrow we'll do 1 to 4, then we'll take a break at 4, and we'll resume at 5, and then we'll end, later. I have to run now. But thank you very much for listening. Again, these conversations are not designed to create enmity or to demonize an ethnic group. We just want to understand history and to also observe the patterns that we see, so that if we start noticing that we are going nibebe wala, we can correct ourselves, right? And then if people decide not to change, you will know how to react because it has happened before. there's nothing like Osheleri. Some things have happened before. So as we studied these things, and I said something, from 38 to 48, nobody really said anything. This whole thing started in 1938. The first time we really responded was in 1948. It took us 10 years. We usually react because we don't like to fight. But we're doing it now again. And hopefully, as we continue this conversation, you'll be armed with the truth. And folks from other ethnic groups also will know how to resolve this. Just stop constituting nuisance everywhere. Just chill. Just be who you were before Azikiwe came on scene. That's the point. And who you were was not that you were subservient. It wasn't that you were less. You were strong. You were respected, but you had your boundaries, which is a normal thing you will have. Until he came, and if I have the time tomorrow, I'm going to read some things from his own book as well. But it's been great having you here. I'm not putting up the account details. I'll do that tomorrow. But thank you for your support. Thank you for liking the live, and thank you for being here. Tomorrow we're going to put up our account details. But if you want to support what we're doing, please reach out to me. You can send me a message. I will give you the details. Thanks to everybody who has been liking and tapping and sharing on TikTok, and for those of us on YouTube as well. Thanks to guys on Twitter. We're going to have our anthems now. Then we'll call it a day. And then I'll see you 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time, tomorrow. That's Friday. So let's have our anthems, and then we will fly. I'm sorry I can't take questions because I'm actually in a hurry, but I promise tomorrow we'll have people come up and we'll also ask questions and all of that. I'm seeing people. Nice. Adenle on Twitter. Thank you for joining us. Hope you had a great time. And YouTube as well. Eshel. All right, so here's the Nigerian anthem. After this, I'll play the Yoruba anthem. Take a listen to this.
Nigeria, we hail thee, our own dear native land. Though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. Nigerians hope and proud to serve our sovereign motherland. Our flag shall be a symbol that truth and justice reign. In peace we count as gain. To hang on to our children a banner without stain. O God of all creation, grant this our one request. Help us to build a nation where no man is oppressed. And so with peace and plenty, Nigeria may be blessed. Iṣẹ́ wa fúnlẹ̀ wá, fún ilẹ̀ ìbí wa. Kàgbéga, kàgbéga, kàgbéga fáyé rí. Ìgbàgbọ́ wa ni pé bá ti bẹ̀rù làbọ̀ mọ́. Ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká ṣiṣẹ́, ká jọlá. Ìṣọ̀kan àtòmìnira ni ẹ jẹ́ ká máa lépa. Tẹ̀síwájú fọ̀pọ̀ ire àtòhun tó dára. Ọmọ òdàdìde bọ́ sípò ẹ̀tọ́ rẹ̀. Ìwọ ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ gbogbo adúláwọ̀.
Àwa ni ìmọ́lẹ̀ ogun adúláwọ̀. Ìmọ́lẹ̀ wọ̀ ní wọ́kùn lágbára Ọlọ́run. Ilẹ̀ Yorùbá ò ní bàjẹ́. Nàìjíríà náà ò ní bàjẹ́. And I pray that we all do well and everything will lay hands upon. Thank you very much for a fantastic session today. We'll be here tomorrow, 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. Please share the live, engage with our content on the different platforms, and support what we're doing. Thank you very much for being here. I'll see you tomorrow, 1 p.m. Ife time, West African time. God bless you. Odaro. So tomorrow, don't forget, tomorrow we'll do 1 to 4. We'll take a break. Then we'll come back 5 to 7, 7:30 thereabout. All right? Eshe? Bye-bye. So we're going to end our TikTok last, Abi. Thank you, guys.